Everybody, today we're doing the March wrap up. Everybody, my name is Sophie, the Bookish Floor. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. So today we're gonna do the March wrap up, and I'm gonna tell you all the books that I was able to read during the month of March. I might have another book that I want to read because I still have about 4 days left of March. So I think I wanna read one more. And if I do, you might see me in a different outfit at the end telling you about that particular book. But for now, let's just talk about the books that I have read until today, which is March 27th. Okay, so the first book that I was able to read is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. And let me tell you, I think Abby Jimenez is going to be one of my new favorites. I knew I was going to like her from the start because what I have heard already from a lot of you who have already read her. I don't like contemporary romance, but I was liking what I was hearing about her. And you all were right. So, Just for the Summer is the story of two people. I always forget the name of the character, so forgive me. I think the guy's name is Jesse, and I can't remember the girl's name. But it's the story of two people, a traveling nurse and a guy who meet online, like on Reddit, because they're talking about the fact that every time they fall in love with someone and then they break up, that other person automatically finds their like forever love. And so they decide, hey, if we get together, if we start dating, when we break up, that curse is kind of over and we both will find our main person. That's the premise. That's how they meet. However, there's so much backstory. And that's why people like Abby Jimenez, is because it's really you're getting to know these characters. It's really like an exploration of these characters, of their own life individually, and how they're gonna end up together, and if they're gonna be able to mesh those lives, which is what happens in real life. Is we are all individuals, and we kind of have to find a way to see if we can mesh our lives together, whether it's in love or friendship or whatever it is. So I think Abby Jimenez does a great job on being a little bit deeper in the analysis of these individuals and their relationship, and without being heavy, without being like without losing all that romance, without losing all the sparkles. You still see these people as individuals and how they're gonna come in together, and um they don't complete each other. They are two individuals coming together. And that's what the whole story is, whether they're going to be able to do that or not. And like I said, there's really complex backstories for each of them. And it's incredibly interesting the way she does that. I know that she, from what people have said, takes a lot of care of how she does that. She has talks to psychologists and different people who would know about those particular topics in order to make a realistic story. So I really like that. I gave this one 5 stars. I like the romance. I like the backstories. I think this is a kind of contemporary romance I like. Okay, my next book was part of a challenge that I was doing, which was reading BookTok books I think I'm gonna hate. So I took like favorites from BookTok, whether it's authors or specific books, and I gave them a chance. See if I was gonna hate them as much as I thought I was. None of these are people that I thought I was gonna love. I thought maybe some of them would be okay, and then most of them I thought I was gonna hate. But I was pleasantly surprised. So the first one is Ali Hazelwood, and this is actually a book I have heard nothing about. That's why I decided also to pick that one because no one has really talked about it. And I ended up really, really liking it. It's called Two Can Play, and it's about two gaming developers who are enemies, basically, or not enemies, but they don't get along. It's very much a Darcy Elizabeth dynamic, which I really like. You know, I love Jane Austen, so I really like that dynamic. Um, and they were school classmates, and then something happened, and they don't seem to get along at all, and they end up working on the same project. They're both team leaders for those companies that have to come together in order to work on this game that means a lot to Viola, which is the main girl, and Jesse is the main guy also. So I really like the dynamic. I know that I one of the tropes that hate is miscommunication. I don't think it's I think it's dumb. Sorry about that. But I think in this day and age, when we can talk about everything and anything, miscommunication trope doesn't really work well in romance because they try to take that from, again, Elizabeth and Darcy in the Regency era and trope, and it doesn't work in this timeline, in modern times. So it is done here. So I was kind of rolling my eyes. But when they explain it, it makes so much sense. So much sense. So if you are a writer or if you like books that have romance, but you don't like the miscommunication trope, or you're trying to write a miscommunication trope, the way this is explained is so good that it makes sense. So I would recommend you reading this. It's also, I thought it was really cute. I think Jessie is also like a very well developed love interest, just like Jesse from Just for the Summer. So those two, I mean, I think they're top tier romance guys for for the genre. So I think it's good. I thought it was great. I didn't think I was gonna like it that much. Like definitely like half of the book is smut. So if you like that, you also have that. That is not my favorite part, but it is important in the story and the conversations they that happening around it is also very important. So I gave that one 4 stars. Okay, the next book that I read for books I thought I was gonna hate from BookTok is Akatar, Court of Thorns and Roses. I have this book. I never thought I would read it. I bought it for my shop, for my second-hand bookshop, and I thought I was just gonna sell it there. It didn't sell, so I thought maybe it's an opportunity for me to read it. Um, and honestly, I think it kind of gets a bad rap. It's in my favorite fantasy book. No, I don't know if it's because I read To Hollow Vows and To Twisted Bonds before, which is the first time that I read romantasy fairy anything, and I really love that one. That is I'm kind of comparing that Akatar to that, and so I didn't. It wasn't my favorite, but I did like the fantasy element, the world building. I really liked it. So Akatar is basically a Beauty and the Beast retelling with fairies. Um, so I like that, and it almost beat by beat like the Disney Beauty and the Beast. However, I did feel like the final third of the book could have been a completely different book, and it kind of lost me there. I feel like it's funny because I felt like it was too long, that part, based on the other part. There was, again, the Beauty and the Beast retelling. I was hoping for other beats from like the Disney story, and then you kind of get caught in like in the last third, and you introduce like a whole new world. I feel like they should have finished that whole story, and then that third section could have been a book number 2, and I would have liked it, and because it's a whole nother world, whole other characters, and I feel like it's too much like to put all that at the end of book 1. So I gave it 3 stars because I like the world building. The smut was really like not as much, maybe 3 scenes. So I think it does get a bad rap because of that. I don't know if the other books are very heavy on that. Um, but I felt like this one was more about the fantasy world building of the Fae. So I gave it 3 stars. I'm willing to read book number 2, just not like right away. Like I said, it's not one of my favorites. When I read this Hollow Vows, immediately I put on like this Twisted Bonds on audiobook because I wanted to know what happened. For Akatar, that last third kind of killed it for me. So one day when I have time, when I want to, if I find a book, maybe I'll read book 2. Okay, the next book that I read was Malibu Rising. Malibu Rising is from Taylor Jenkins Reid. I was pretty sure that I was gonna hate this because I've hated Evelyn Hugo. I didn't like the series, Daisy and the Jones. It got me at the end a little bit, but the very, very last scene, which if you know, you know, hated it too. So I mean, it is what it is. I don't like the way Taylor Jenkins Reid writes representation, I think it's a little harmful, to be honest. And I feel like in Malibu Rising is more like token representation, which is really like rubs me the wrong way. However, the story is about four siblings who are the kids of a famous singer and who have pretty much raised themselves. And we see everything that has gone through, they have gone through in their lives, how they have to survive and again raise themselves, and how they have thrived, and how what happened to them in their childhood um, really influences who they are, obviously, as adults, and how they handle relationships. So I like the four siblings, but again, structurally, this book was a mess. Like the first third is like the parents' story, which feels like an old Hollywood story. Then we have the middle part, which is the four siblings story, which feels a lot like a like family drama. And then the last third is like a 80s comedy uh from a party, and it just like 80s excess comedy party thing, and it just feels incredibly disjointed. I gave it 3 stars because the siblings saved it, but for example, I gave Akatar 3 stars and I'm willing to read the second book because the fantasy was there. I gave a Malibu Rising 3 stars, but honestly it was is more like a 2.5, and I don't want to read anymore from Taylor Jenkins Reid. I feel like yeah, like her shtick is unlikable characters just for the fun of it. And I don't like that representation. It rubs me like the wrong way a lot. And I just don't think her writing is for me. Again, all of this is just my thoughts and what I think based on what I've read and based on my culture and based on different things. So I don't think she's for me. So I'm giving up on her. I have 3 books from her: Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones, and Malibu Rising, and those are gonna be available on my shop. If you are local and you wanna contact me because you want those, take them. Maybe you like her, and that's fine. Take them and enjoy them. I wish I would like all the books that I read. I've said this before, but she's just not for me. Okay, and someone else who's definitely not for me is Sally Rooney and Normal People. Now, it's gonna be really tough for me to give Sally Rooney a second chance because I hated Normal People from the beginning. These are horrible people. It should be called horrible people. Horrible people who are mean to each other, who are horrible human beings who learn absolutely nothing. One of them tries to be better, but trying to be better and actually being better are very different things. And at the end, they're exactly at the same place where the story began. So I don't understand why we're listening to the story. I've said this before and I'll say it again here. You can write unlikable characters and you still want to follow them because of the complexities, because of who they are, because of the life they're living. There was no reason for these people to be the way they are. One of them seems really privileged and really annoying, and the other one seems just to be horrible just for the sake of being horrible. Obviously, these are incredibly insecure people who are not willing to grow. And we see them as adolescent. It starts in like when they're teenagers, and you can understand certain things that they go through because they are younger. But as they grow, and they don't grow as human beings, they are exactly the same as they were when they were teenagers. Like, what is the point? So this, I really didn't like it. There are a lot of other stories, coming of age stories of people, of complex people who are gonna sometimes change, sometimes not, but circumstances do change. Like, there has to be an arc to this story. There was no arc. This is like plain. People start here, they end here, and they're horrible in both places. So what's the point? So I think on Goodreads is like 3 stars, but really the more I think about it, I think I'm gonna bump it down to 2 because I wasn't sure if like 2 felt too low and 3 felt too high. But when I think about my rating, 2 is a book that I wouldn't recommend um, to anyone. And actually, a 1 star is something that I hate, and I don't think anybody should read it. And I'm more like in that part when I think about this book. So I'm still not sure whether to bump it down to a 2 or a 1. But I think for now, I'm just gonna do it right now and just bump it to a 2. So there you have it. Okay, the next book that I read, also a horrible person. Well, not so horrible, but you understand their situation. You understand that they're young, and you can kind of see a narc coming. So the next one is The Samurai Turned Pretty. I have seen the series. I thought I was not gonna like it because I don't like a lot of things from the series, but Book Belly is worse. Like the series is not that bad. Book Belly is really like selfish, self-absorbed, self-involved. She's horrible to her mother. She's horrible to her best friend. She's horrible to Cam Cameron. Like she's really bad to everyone. You see that a narc is coming. You see at the end that she realizes something. And even though at the moment when she realizes something, she still has an intrusive thought in her mind and it's written in the book, you can see where she's going. And at the end of the book, you can see that there's a little bit of growth. So I'm interested maybe in reading the rest of them. Maybe I'm not sure. So I gave it 3 stars. But really, again, an unlikable character that you can kind of root for and hope that she'll grow out of it because it is the place where she is coming from. What I've heard from the books, she's probably not gonna grow, but at least she has a little bit of an arc right there at the end. You can argue the same thing about normal people, but again, when your actions don't show it, what's the point of telling me that he might grow, but he really doesn't? So, anyways, I gave that one 3 stars. Sorry, I'm leaning. I'm just looking at my Goodreads so I don't miss anything because then I forget. Okay, the next book that I read was Sunrise on the Reaping. I had to do it. First day that it came out, I got my copy and I listened to it during the whole day. It lives up to everything. This is Haymitch's story from the Hunger Games. If you guys know or don't know, he is Katniss' mentor in the games, and we know why he is the way he is. Everything it's chef's kiss, and obviously there are horrible things that happen to Haymitch that you understand why he turned out the way he turned out to be. And there's this heaviness that he has that we didn't know why or how or when it started. And this is all explained. We have some characters from the trilogy, the original trilogy. Obviously, they're younger, and I like that. But the backstory of them also is very important, and you understand why things are happening. So I really did like it. I do think that this added to the lore, to everything in the world. I know that a lot of people didn't like Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Yeah, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I really did like it. I didn't think it romanticized it. I think it told us the villain origin story, and I actually saw it from a different perspective than a lot of people. I don't know if I'm correct, um, but anyways, I like Sunrise on the Reaping a lot. I think it's an excellent book. You should go ahead and read it. I gave it 5 stars. After Sunrise on the Reaping, I listened to an essay talk that Gloria Steinem did called, I have to read it. Scholar Witches and Other Freedom Fighters. And this is about feminism, how witches and scholars have been prosecuted, I guess, in the world for their knowledge and their wisdom, and how certain either religious or political or points of view at the moment um, want to silence those people because they are usually fighting for the freedom and for the rights of all others. It is incredibly interesting. It's about an hour long. It's not that long, and it's also in book form. If you guys are interested, I'm sure the book form is a longer because this was like the original speech. But I think it's really important. There's also a question and answer a section, which I love, and she is so smart. And yeah, I think it is important for people to listen to it, and I gave it 5 stars, obviously. And then the last book that I just finished is Perras de Reserva or Reservoir. This is a book from a Mexican author. called Dalia de la Cerda, and she has been nominated. The book has been nominated for a Booker Prize this year. Honestly, I had it was a roller coaster for me with this book. This is reminding me, once I finished and I had like a chance to think about it, it really reminded me of Never Whistled at Night, which is a series of short stories with the lens of Native American, and uh, all of the authors, it's different authors are Native American, and it's their life experience as Native Americans. And this is something similar. This is a collection of stories, 13 stories from the point of view of different women from different social classes um, in, from Mexico. The work of the voices of each of the characters are amazing. Like these are women. The stories are women from different parts of Mexico, and you can tell like the voices from each region, the language, even the classes, like the language that she uses. She is a master of doing that, and I'm saying that because that has been my problem with Latin American literature, that it doesn't feel like the how we actually speak. It feels very detached, very over stylized, and very old school, like they're trying to imitate other types of literature. And this one feels like the voices of each of those characters from where they are, based on the age, based on their class, based on their region. It is so well written. I really like that. The part that is conflicting with me is that there are some stories that are based on like criminal activities and gangs and all that. And although it's a part of the reality of our country or my country, I I'm kind of, is so saturated. I feel like people from other countries sometimes glorify those stories. Once I listen to the whole thing, I understand why they are there, why it's important for us to listen to those stories, but also listen to the rest of the stories and the rest of the women. My favorite one is probably one of the hardest ones, but the way it was written and the way it was presented is when you wear that shirt that says "I support women's rights and women's wrong." That's what they're talking about. It's called Sonrisas, I believe, or Sonrisa, and it's, I think, I don't remember which number, but it's about vampires. I'm just gonna leave it at that. And I saw an interview later on from Dalia, and she was saying that that's her favorite story, and she was explaining how she wrote it and why she wrote it, and it makes total sense. For me, it makes sense that it's the one that I like the most, and it's the one that I actually would love it if it was a novel and the universe would expand. Uh, and you can tell that that's her favorite because of the way that it's written, and you can connect to it. And obviously, it is incredibly gruesome, but I think it's important to see the reality of a lot of people in this country and in other countries. Honestly, it's not just this country. It's just that there's a bigger lens put on Mexico for those things. I wish the lens would be a little bit to other people who are doing amazing things. I wish that we would tell more stories, and even fiction or real, of people doing amazing things, and not just that focus on people who suffer and are marginalized and all that. But those are important stories to tell. So I see the importance of this book. I see the importance of these stories. They are incredibly difficult and graphic. Every trigger warning you can think of is in this book. So please read it, but read it if you're an adult. Read it if you are at an age that you can understand everything. Read it if you feel like you can read it. Take care of yourself first, because it is so incredibly heavy. But yeah, I think the more I think about it and the more I sit with it, I'm glad that it's out there in the forefront right now. And I hope she wins the Booker Prize, because I know, based on what even the description on the Booker Prize, I don't think it's correct, or the tone is correct. However, once I saw the interview with Dalia, I can see what she's doing. And if she wins the Booker Prize and she gets up there and gives a speech, people will understand what this is really about. And if she doesn't, you please go ahead and look for interviews from her, because I think it's important what she has to say. So yeah, those are all the books that I have read up to now. If I read something more, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce it right here.
Hey everybody, so I was able to finish two more books. The first one finished before, but I forgot to mention it. So this is an art given to me by Ned Kelly, and this was The Other March Sisters. So this book I gave 3 stars, but it wasn't really my cup of tea. So this is a retelling of Little Women, obviously, but from the perspective of the other sisters, which are Amy, Meg, and Beth. So we see each of their stories while Joe is in New York and Amy is in Europe. And we see why Amy wants to get married or what is she looking for. We see Teddy also and his dynamic with Amy. We see Meg in her marriage, and we see Beth and a friendship that she develops. Um, this is a totally new perspective. Everything you think they are, they switched it. They switch how they view the world, how they see what's going on, the friendships that they are making, the relationships that they have, and the relationships to Marmee. So I really didn't like it. I feel like it changes the complete lore, and I'm not one of those people who is like you have to stick to whatever it is, but it doesn't even feel like the essence of the original characters. What they're saying is important, but it very much feels like completely different characters. So if this story would have been told from other characters in the story, maybe like a neighbor or maybe like another friend in Europe, and it wasn't them, I would have liked it more. But because you're changing so much of who they are, I really didn't like it. But if you are a fan of retellings, of them changing the rules, changing the lore, and changing everything, I think this is a book that you might like. In this case, I didn't like it. Oddly enough, I haven't found any Little Women retellings that I really like. I feel like they do change a lot and they don't understand the core elements of the characters. However, I have read other retellings like from Pride and Prejudice and other Jane Austen work, and I do like it. So it's not that they're changing the lore, it's just that I feel like they don't understand like who the main characters are. But that's just me. Feel free to read it and maybe you think differently, and please explain so we can understand. And then the other book that I finished reading was Divine Rivals. I decided that I have a little bit more time to read that book, and I went ahead and listened to it. I did like that a lot. I'm gonna be honest, sometimes I was checking in and out, but I was quickly coming back to it. This is about two rival writers who work at a newspaper, and they end up with magical typewriters in which when one writes a letter, it gets sent to the other person, and vice versa. This starts very much as a You Got Mail retelling, and You Got Mail is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. So I mean, I was all in. I love You Got Mail. I love Pride and Prejudice, and it does feel like that. There is a war going on in this world. They have those magical typewriters. There are gods fighting in this war. So there is this fantasy element to it, or it is fantasy. However, that relationship and the slow burn, very much You Got Mail, very much Pride and Prejudice. Uh, and I really did like all that. However, you ended at a cliffhanger, and I'm reading the second book, and the second book feels like a whole new thing. So I'll talk about that one in April probably, because I'm still listening to it. But for now, I really did like Divine Rivals. I think I gave it maybe 3.54 stars because I was engaged. Certain parts I again was disconnecting a little bit, but I quickly came back to it. And if you like a slow burn, this is the slowest of slow burns. So yeah, I did like that too. So anyway, those are the two more books that I was able to read in March.
Anyways, let me know what you read in the month of March. Remember to put it on the comments if you have read any of these books, or if you want to recommend something for us to read, put it right there on the comment. And if you got to the end, why don't you put an emoji of a woman, because we're still celebrating Women's History Month, and all of the authors that I read are female. I don't know if you noticed, but all my authors from March are female authors, and it was a great month. So, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence. So, anyway, remember that in the description, you have all the ways that you can support my channel and all the ways we can connect on social media and all other places. Remember to keep reading and keep blooming, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.